Well, this is embarrassing. I am going to be fully transparent with you guys and say, yes, I did have this video planned right before the Chicago Bulls beat the Denver Nuggets in a fucking crazy game. A game that I am going to be talking about here in a minute, okay? But I do want to start off by clarifying one simple thing. This video is in no way a Chicago Bulls hate video, okay? I love the Bulls, and I think their roster and construction is very interesting. It's another thing I'm going to be getting into here in a minute. I think it should also be noted that nobody can hate the Chicago Bulls more than their own fan base. The title and thumbnail of this video is something along the lines of the Chicago Bulls tricked you. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about? They're a winning team, right? They just had this crazy game against the Nuggets. Yes, bro, they tricked you into thinking that they're good enough to beat the Nuggets. Do you not see what they're doing? It had nothing to do with the 66 bench points to the Denver Nuggets 9. Don't think about that. Because the truth is, y'all, I don't care how many close games there are. I don't care how many times they beat a true contending team. The Chicago Bulls are still tricking everybody. But what exactly does that mean? Let's just start off with, how they begun this season. They started this one winning 5 games straight. At one point, they were like one of the last teams remaining that were undefeated alongside the OKC Thunder and some other team. I can't remember. And some people were actually looking at this Bulls team and saying, oh my God, like, did they randomly stumble upon an actual good contending team? And then they followed up that 5-game winning streak by losing 5 games straight. And at this point, I am not really talking to actual Chicago Bulls fans because they know the drill. A lot of them knew after they won the first 5 games, there is no way this lasts. Like, we are going to bottom out and lose 48 games straight, which is amazing to have another fan base that's kind of like, my Sacramento Kings. But once again, I want to dive a little bit deeper into why they won their first 5 games. What did they do differently that tricked so many people into thinking that they could actually be a contending team this season? Well, plain and simple, all of their opponents were shooting horrendously bad, like some of the worst percentages we have seen all season. And it's not as simple as just pointing out the 3-point percentage and saying, oh, that's why they lost. Because in some of the games, it was decent shooting or whatever. But I do think one of the main reasons as to why the Bulls were able to do this is because a lot of the teams that they went up against were either ass or were one of the teams that had so much stuff to figure out going into the season. If you take the Bulls, they ended last year going like a crazy absurd record. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I'm not going to come up with some bullshit, but they ended the season amazing, which is part of the reason why when they started this season so good, a lot of people were thinking maybe last year wasn't a fluke. But I genuinely do think it was easier for them to come into this season kind of already understanding their system, what they were going to do. Okay, Josh Giddey is the leader. A lot of things that other teams like the Orlando Magic or the Atlanta Hawks had to kind of figure out, right? The Magic just got Desmond Bane. They're trying to figure out their offense, and to start the season, they were horrendous. They were nowhere near as good as what a lot of people expected them to be. Obviously, now they are starting to pick things up a little bit and understand what they are doing, although they still have a lot of issues to me. Same kind of thing with the Atlanta Hawks. Jalen Johnson was getting back, trying to figure out everything new with all the new players, but Kristaps Porzingis has been in and out, and once again, a situation where they have kind of gotten things under control a little bit, even without Trae Young. But those were two teams that were definitely figuring out things, and it was very apparent and visible to start off the season. Same kind of thing with the New York Knicks. They were trying to learn the new Mike Brown system. It was their first time in fucking 10 decades where they actually played with depth with their bench. Why am I waving my mouse around like this? Holy shit. And then they did beat the Sacramento Kings, but who the fuck hasn't beat that team? I mean, you could beat them with your eyes closed. And listen, that's not to say like these are the only reasons why the Chicago Bulls won, because in all fairness, like some of these games, they just did play good. Plain and simple, Josh Giddey has still been playing amazing going off of what he did at the end of last season. I'm not trying to say like, oh, these are the only reasons why the Bulls, won these games. And if anything else was different, they would have lost. That's just not the case. But winning 5 games in a row, there is some external things going on. Now, there is one major conversation surrounding their losses as well, right? A lot of people love to talk about the wins and, oh my God, we're on top of the, conference standings. Oh, it's great. And with the losses, the one thing that I would always kind of hear or see is, hey, the Chicago Bulls were in the game. Like, they had a chance at winning, but they're just young and they kind of fumbled it and they just aren't able to really maintain that lead, which becomes very apparent after you watch their double overtime game against the Utah Jazz, one that I genuinely think they should have won, or like they could have won. I think part of the issue was running guys like Kobe White just into the ground following an injury, and he's coming back and trying to get readjusted. You play him 30 something minutes, he is literally dying on the court. Granted, he got the shot shots you needed, but those were some games where it was like, yes, they lost, but they're so close. And so some people still have this mentality of, yeah, they lost 5 games in a row, but they were close, right? Like, there's a chance that later on in the season, they kind of understand each other a little bit more and they can come back and win the game. I'm just going to stop you guys right there. It's not happening. Okay, I'm going to say right now, yes, the Eastern Conference is weak, and they seem to be getting weaker and weaker by the day as everybody gets injured. And so, like, obviously there's a chance that they do, you know, go in and somehow get that playoff spot, right? They secure, you know, no play-in tournament, no nothing. That's usually where they are. They just skip it all together. There is the smallest chance in the world, but even then, I would say that they are still tricking you because this team is not what it needs to be. This is not the Chicago Bulls that is going to bring a championship back to Chicago. And that might sound obvious, but you have to remember who's running this team. The people who run this franchise are so okay with being mid because they know they're going to sell tickets. They know that they're still going to have the name recognition from the 90s. They're going to keep piggybacking off the dynasty. Like, these are people who are okay with these things. So if you're the Chicago Bulls and you are a middle of the pack team, or you make, you know, one playoff appearance and you lose in the first round, I don't see them making the crazy moves that continue to build this team and make them even better. Because listen, I'm sorry, Josh Giddey, he's been playing great, out of his mind. Awesome. You know, Ayo Dosunmu had a great game tonight. Modest Buzelis is very clearly improved, but I still don't think the Chicago Bulls have their star. Now, I will say, I think that they are simply one star player away from being a fucking insane team, along with some other adjustments, like, you know, maybe getting a nice defensive wing or getting rid of Vucevic. But the thing that scares me, and I guess the kind of trickery with the Chicago Bulls, is that I feel like because they are a young team and they have been put together and gotten some wins, they will make their playoff appearance, their postseason appearance, and they will lose pretty quickly. And it will trick everybody into thinking, okay, maybe Josh Giddey is actually the guy. Like, maybe he can be the one to run the team. No, maybe Modest Buzelis, after a couple more years, he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the all-star. Oh, Noah Asenge is going to come out. The team just doesn't have it. And I hate to sound like this because I do sound just like a Debbie Downer, you know, like shitting on them even when they're having a lot of fun games. I do enjoy watching the team. Like, I want to say that this Nuggets game specifically, okay, we can dive into this one. Holy shit, the bench that they had in this game is fucking absurd. I already mentioned their 66 bench points compared to the Denver Nuggets 9, but it was other things like just shooting lights out. Ayo Dosunmu got everything he wanted in the paint. Jalen Smith just could not miss from downtown. It seems like every single time he put it up, it was going in. Kevin Huerter had one of those games where he also just can't miss. Although, fair warning for Bulls fans, he's going to go back to missing shots for a couple of games. He only does this every now and then. So obviously, I'm not making this video to try to put down the Chicago Bulls and say that they're not fun or like, oh my God, you guys really care about winning games. But it's also one of those things where if you know, 20 games into the season, you continue to lose, you're in the same cycle again of, oh, fuck, back in the play-in tournament. Oh, man, you know, then you're kind of hoping you bottom out so you can get a draft pick in this stacked draft class. And actually, speaking about the draft, there are some things that I do think the team needs to do to actually readjust and maybe become the contending team that we all think they can be. Obviously, I kind of mentioned these things before, but one of them is getting a star player. Do I think that that's Anthony Davis, which is a proposed trade that has been going around? God, no. Why is this image even real? AD is never going to Chicago. In all seriousness, yes, I do think they need a star player, whether that's from the trade or this upcoming draft, I don't know. But I do think plugging that player alongside a guy like Josh Giddey and all the other assets that I've already mentioned in this video will make them a very good team. Under one condition, I already mentioned this before, but getting rid of Vucevic. Listen, I watch the Bulls, right? I try to stay in tune with all the teams around the league and stuff like that. But if there's one thing that I consistently see from a fan base, even from just like a casual viewer perspective, it's this fan base hating on Vucevic and wanting him to get the fuck out of the city. And all it takes is watching one game of his to know why they are saying that. It actually blows my mind that the Bulls were willing to get rid of Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and still are holding on to this negative asset. And maybe that's why they still have him, right? Nobody fucking wants his ass. But I swear there were even conversations where it's like maybe the Golden State Warriors wanted him or some shit like that. And it just blows my mind, man. It knocks my socks off that they still have this man on their fucking team. He is so awful. He is so dog shit on both offense and defense. It is fucking absurd. I don't care if he hit the dagger in the game against the Denver Nuggets. Okay, I don't care. You know what? Fuck what I said about having a star player or, you know, trading whoever. I don't give a fuck. If you got rid of Vucevic and put in a solid or decent rim protector or just defensive anchor, this team can make the playoffs. I'll say it right now. They can make the playoffs in a injured heavy Eastern Conference, which means that they're like a low tier play-in team in general. Editor King Charge here. As I go through this footage, I just realized I basically explained the Bulls need to get rid of Vucevic and get a guy like Anthony Davis, who I just said earlier they should not get anyone like AD. It's nothing about being like AD, okay? I stand by this. They should not trade for Anthony Davis, but they should get a good defensive anchor instead of Vucevic. You understand? Okay. Back to the video. Sorry for interrupting. I guess at the end of the day, it's the Chicago Bulls. Nobody knows what they're going to do, if they're going to win, if they're going to lose. Nobody knows. The Chicago Bulls have been a massive question mark for years now. Maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe I'm being tricked into thinking that they aren't a good team, right? Like maybe that's the case that we're in right now. And, you know, maybe in 30, 40 games, we look at this team and say, damn, they're actually really solid and they have a bright future. And King Charge was wrong as hell. I will say, though, if you're not subscribed to me, you'll want to subscribe to me so you know to come back to my future videos and say that I was wrong. So go ahead, y'all. Go down there, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, as that does help out the channel a ton. And, of course, comment your opinions on this Bulls team. Whether you disagree with me or not, I want to hear every single take that you guys have, whether it's about management, coaching, players, literally anything that you have. I read and respond to everybody down there. And yeah, man, that being said, I will see you guys all in the next one. Later. And if you're watching this clip, you are actually real as fuck because you watched until the very, very end of the video. So I have a surprise for you, okay? My next video will most likely be episode 9 of Clem Haskins. I still don't know what team he should go to, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, that episode is coming soon. All right, see you guys later. Bye.